Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Choice Chats. I am so excited to have Tash Durkins here with me, who is not only a dear friend, but a soul sister. We met during our book writing journey, and I am so honored to have you here, Tosh.
Loren, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be with you and to be part of Choice Chats. And more importantly, you're just an amazing, amazing friend. So thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you so, so much. I want to give you some space to share your journey with our audience, wherever you want to begin.
Okay. Well, I'll share what defines me the most, I'll say, is that I was a relatively young woman when I lost my mom. I was 20 years old. And she was my best friend, Lauren, best friend. And I, in that moment, remember thinking, I don't know how to live without her. And, it sent me into like this deep depression because I really didn't know how I was going to live. And she was 49, she was young when she died. And from that moment on, I remember thinking, maybe I'll make it to 49 too. But that was so pivotal because somehow the universe gave me strength to look past the loss and focus on all that I got in those 20 years that some
Mm,
people never get to have. And in time, Lauren, I was able to really focus on all the amazing, amazing lessons that my mom taught me, as well as my dad. He passed away not too long after her. And I have spent my life tuning in to how they showed me to be as a
mm,
person. And it makes me proud because that was for them a person that was part of community, a person that was of high integrity, that was very authentic, and that was focused on making the world a better place. And so that's what I have focused on doing ever since. And it has been quite the journey
mm,
for which I'm completely grateful. That's led me to where I am today. But it was that foundation
mm,
that I didn't know right away back then, but I've since learned gave me everything I needed to be able to thrive.
mm. And everything that I hear you describe, I see them in you.
Mm,
Even though it was so long ago, what you do, what you stand for, really emanates to a point that you don't have to say that. You feel it. And
oh,
so I'm
thank you.
so honored to be in your orbit, friend, because we've had these discussions, right,
Yeah.
about not just loss, but meaningful loss, people who meant so much to us in our lives, and how grief, it changes you, it changes things, right? And you
Yeah.
were able to use your parents' legacy and use it as the cornerstone of your life and your
Mm,
journey to a point that you're impacting others in so many different ways. And so, as I hear your story, one thing that I'm curious about is what was that pivotal choice in your life that led you to really turn the corner and really pivot with purpose. We hear the word pivot a lot, especially in
mm,
the coaching space. Everyone's going through some type of pivot. But pivoting with purpose, that's what this space is about. These choice chats are a love letter to people like you who've made a bold choice. And in that choice, you help improve the lives of so many.
mm.
And so I want to really understand, what was that moment in your life? You kind of alluded to it, but I really want to dig deeper there.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for your kind words. sometimes I feel like the luckiest girl in the world that I get to live out my values and what I know to be my purpose.
Mm.
And what happened is because I missed my mom so much and eventually my dad and felt lonely, I leaned in really hard to trying to be someone that would be accepted so I could
Mm.
find my space, the space where people would welcome me, be happy to have me. Um, and so, but unfortunately for me, at first, that meant showing up in ways that weren't aligned with who I really was. I was doing what I thought I had to do to fit in,
Mm.
to have a crew, to have a community support me. And I remember getting to a point where I was taking everything personally that happened, getting upset and just, going home, couldn't let go of things from work, from friendships. And I read the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And that's one of the first agreements is to not take things personally. But that's when I started that journey, which was a long one. And out of that came some courage to start showing up as me.
Mm.
And it was when I got to that point where I didn't take things personally anymore and I started to embrace who I was, regardless of who else agreed with how great I was or wasn't. My life changed completely. It
Mm.
changed completely. And I started giving myself permission to show up in a way that felt right with my soul instead of working on showing up the way that would gain me friends or gain me entry into a clique or something like that. I just didn't care anymore about those things. And what I cared about was being me. And that was the shift, Lauren. And I tell you, when that happened, it was the first time in my life that I experienced freedom,
Mm.
complete freedom and peace. And I never wanted to ever let that go.
I mean, I feel so much more peaceful listening to you. And we've talked about this a million times.
Hmm.
I love how you focus or you emphasized giving yourself permission because a lot of times we know which direction we need to take. We are somewhat committed, but we need to stop and grieve the old us.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
giving ourselves permission, that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of XYZ
Hmm.
to really give ourselves permission, unapologetically, 100% permission to just move on. Clean slate.
Yes. Yes. And you know what, Lauren? Let me make it clear. My sister was scared. Okay.
Yes.
I was like, I might be alone and have no friends and nobody for the rest of my life. But
Hmm.
I knew I'd be at peace. I was afraid. But for me, it was necessary. It was no longer negotiable
Hmm.
to not be me. So I had to push through the fear. The fear never goes away. Even today, I have these moments where I'm wondering if my authentic self is going to be received well. Yet I know I can't be any other way.
Hmm.
And the fear still crops up, now and then, but I had to push through because it felt right with my soul. It really did. My intuition told me
Hmm.
it was time to be me. And this is why it's so important, Lauren. We every single one of us, I believe, has a purpose in this world. And as you said, making a pivot with purpose, right? Every one of us has a purpose, and the only way we get to exercise that and live in it is when we live authentically, when we bring all of our gifts, all of our superpowers to the table. If we don't do that, then we don't get to show up as all of who we are and make the mark on the world that we're meant to make. So that's why it even matters at all, right? Is like
Mm.
we don't want to lose out. Could you imagine if we lost out on Lauren and I didn't know all these things I know about cultural intelligence today?
Can you imagine what would you do without my Lorenisms? I
I
mean,
would not
that would
survive.
be such a boring world. Such a boring world.
But that's it. That's why it matters. It's like we get to show up with our gifts, our
Mm.
superpowers, and do what it is we are meant to do in this world.
Mm.
Non
So
negotiable.
beautifully said. And it is non negotiable. It reminds me of a quote or some post I saw the other day on Instagram that said, fear is loud and courage is silent.
Mm, yes.
And that resonates, right, in what I hear you say, because it's hard to look in the mirror. It's hard to face all the zits and pimples that are there behind the scenes that only you can see.
It's right. And you know what? Let me pull that thread because sometimes when I talk about these things, people think I'm saying being authentic is all good. No.
Mm.
There's some parts of us we need to work
Oh,
on,
oh yes, oh yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's
right?
not a thread, that's a whole different, yeah, that's a whole different quilt.
And I'll just exactly right. It is a whole different quilt, but I'll just say for people to reflect on. That's why it's so important you have the right community,
Hmm.
so that your community holds you accountable for addressing some of those opportunities to improve in your authenticity. Right? You
Right.
want to have people around you who will tell you how you're showing up, how they're experiencing you, and
Mm.
that's how you get to work on those things. Authentic doesn't mean all fantastic, but the superpowers part, we definitely want to lean in on that.
Absolutely. And I've got to bring in my cultural insight into this. I
Please,
can't
yes,
end the day without. But as I hear you speak about this, we also have to consider that authenticity is a privilege,
yes,
because there are many in our world that cannot be
yes,
authentic for fear of retribution. We've talked about this
exactly.
before.
Yes,
So understanding and owning that privilege is part of our superpower,
yeah.
to speak for the voiceless, right? To really empower those that feel they're disempowered.
Hmm.
And so this is why I think your work is so brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more with you because I do see it as my responsibility to create space for others. And that's part of why I'm obsessed with showing up as my true self because other people get to. I'll
Yes.
tell you this really, really quick story about work. A lot of women, particularly women of color, tend to deal with alopecia, losing their hair as they get older.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Some of them are pretty young. And as a result, we often wear hair scarves, which are frowned upon in many workplaces. And knowing this, I decided I'm in this executive position with privilege. I'm going to start wearing hair scarves in the venues where the most people see me across the organization to help make it okay. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but
Mm-hmm.
imagine feeling uncomfortable because you want to come to work and have a beautiful scarf on that doesn't, so your hair thinning is not showing and being
Absolutely.
uncomfortable. No, you should be comfortable. So my job, my responsibility is to create space to do just that.
And in turn, you're becoming not only an ally, um, but an advocate,
Mm,
right? You just said it, you just hit the nail on the head. It's to make it okay,
mhm.
right? It doesn't interfere with you doing your job.
Nope.
It is just somewhat of a norm that became implied.
Exactly.
And if you think about it, it's nonsensical, really. What
It
does
is.
the headscarf have to do with the performance of your job? Explain this to me.
Exactly. Exactly. As you sit with your beautiful scarf on, it
It's
just,
not like your brain cells are going to be hidden, right? I mean, what
yes.
it makes absolutely no sense
Mhm.
unless people get into a headscarf war, and then that's a different story.
Then that's different. But yes, but now it has slowly become, much more acceptable. People
Mm.
compliment one another on headscarves, and it's a beautiful thing. But I'm, as you said, grateful to have had the privilege to create the space.
Yes,
It's a blessing.
it is a blessing. It's because of people like you who reminds us every day that it's okay to just be. There are certain contexts where it may not be um, it may not be good for our safety,
Mm-hmm.
but to a certain extent, it is okay to just be. I mean, 2 years ago, I would not have shown up to a recording with my headscarf, right?
Oh,
And little by little, as you start peeling off those layers and you follow the four agreements and you honor yourself unapologetically,
yeah.
you begin to emerge as a stronger version of you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, showing up as all of you, not just one part of you. Our hair, our skin color are just one part of who we are.
Mm-hmm. So beautifully said, Lauren. I love what you just said. And then, you know, part of Tash and Lauren is we like our funky frames.
Yes,
We
we
don't rock
do.
around, and I'll never forget a moment when I was encouraged to not wear my funky frames to work. That I should save those for the weekend. And I was like, you know what? This is my style. This is that little bit of me. Once again, not unprofessional, just like the scarf.
This is what I'm saying. Some of those things, and I think about it sometimes. I'm like, because I'm not going to be able to see you properly.
Right. And that, this is one of the things I love about all that you've taught me around cultural intelligence, because, the beauty of the diversity that comes when we allow ourselves to be free to be ourselves
Hmm.
and can step back and appreciate what's different from me, what's different about your culture and your perspective. In my culture, we love color and accessories. So we just wear them and we do them. We just do it. This is who we are, and it makes us feel good. And rather than judge one who let's say is the opposite from me, it doesn't like any color and wants to wear black and gray and blue every day, I'm
Like
fine
me.
with that. Right? I'm fine with that. That is okay.
Yes.
Like, it should be okay, right? No matter what.
I know.
Different is okay and welcome.
I know. I can appreciate what you're saying because, my culture is very similar. Everything's
Hmm.
loud and boisterous to a certain
Hmm.
extent, right? Latins love their flavor, their spices, their colors,
Hmm.
their volume, everything. Everything's. And I'm totally the opposite. I think I express myself through my frames, right? And, people ask me all the time, "Are you in mourning? I'm so sorry for your loss."
No.
And I'm like, "No, no, I just like to wear black. A, it's practical.
Yes.
B, every time I wear a light color, it gets dirty right away, which freaks me out. Three, I spent so many years in retail
Oh.
that black just became the thing,
Mhm.
the symbol, whatever. And it's something that to this day I still connect with. And, especially here uh, in the Dominican Republic, I'm wearing black all the time. Although I have added some white. We may argue
Oh,
that that's not necessarily a
interesting.
color, but it adds contrast.
I love it.
And everyone's in their, colorful attire. And wearing all black. And like, oh, hello. But you could tell. You could
Mm,
tell in the looks. So to your point, cultural intelligence is about understanding.
yes.
And when you come from a place of understanding, all of a sudden all judgment melts away.
Yes.
I understand that my culture values that it's an expression of the culture and this beautiful kaleidoscope of colors that we have, right? But I don't have to necessarily adopt those views in order to adapt. I can
Exactly.
appreciate it and still coexist authentically.
Hmm. And that's what I love. Like that to me is what makes this world and our community so rich because
Hmm.
we can decide to remove judgment and allow people to be who they are.
To do this, but I pressed stop record. It was not
Oh,
on purpose. So if you could repeat that, because I was that person today.
okay. Yes, ma'am. Look, I don't even remember what I said. Oh my God. Yes. So the fact that we can agree
Mm,
to sort of disagree and get to that space of removing judgment of people, that like creates then this new space where people are comfortable being vulnerable,
mm,
and that's how we truly develop community, like deep connections, meaningful connections. When you don't feel judged, you're more willing to show up as yourself and then engage all out, not be in
yes.
there with the wall up, right? And that's how I have developed amazing relationships over the years by just not judging and being willing to accept people as they are. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm so far from 100% non judgment, but I've gotten better at it than I was years ago.
But that's the beauty of it is that you never really arrive.
No.
It's never, you never get to 100%. Someone told me the other day, I made a comment and someone said to me, well, aren't you Miss Cultural Intelligence? How can you say that? I'm like, you're absolutely right. It's culturally unintelligent for me to say that or think that, but this is a clear reflection of how biases work.
Mm-hmm.
That if you are not paying attention and staying attuned all the time, you do succumb to your biases, right? And you
Yes.
become a prisoner of your biases. And the beauty of this is why I love cultural intelligence because that's perspective taking and seeking.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, you have this knowledge and you're strategizing all the time in order to self-manage biases because they don't go away. You just learn to coexist and manage them.
Mm. Exactly. Yes, that right there. I love that you said that, Lauren, because that's been part of my personal evolution too. Is knowing that you don't arrive, you have back steps, missteps,
Mm,
whatever, and but what you can do is become much more aware. You
yes,
can heighten your awareness and heighten your level of consciousness so that then you get to recognize when you're working outside of where you want to be and decide how you want to mitigate that.
exactly.
I love that. Just being able to stop and be like, And somebody said something to me. It was funny. I had one of those moments myself recently. And it was at work. And one of my colleagues said, well, that's not encouraging authenticity. I was like, okay, all right, you got me.
Yes, yes,
Taken. Thank you for calling
yes,
me out. But again, that's why you need the community
yes.
because he was comfortable calling me out and I appreciated it.
And this is where the courage comes in, right?
Yes.
Because you're courageous enough to understand that, yes, it is a humbling experience
Yes.
and be appreciative. and humble enough to accept when someone is calling you out on something,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes we hear our own little voices say, oh, check
Yeah,
yourself, going in the wrong direction. But sometimes we miss the cue. And to have someone call us out on it is the best partner we can ever have in this journey.
I welcome it. I do.
Mhm.
I welcome it, and sometimes I don't want to hear it and I'll stall on acknowledging that they're right.
Snap that rubber band.
Like, I don't know, was it really? But generally I get on board fairly quickly because what a blessing to get some feedback and some
Mm,
insight around how we're showing up. Are you showing up the way you say you want to?
yes.
I want people to tell me if I'm not. I really want to know. So I revel in that opportunity to get that feedback, and I'm grateful that I have a community that gives it.
Well, on that note, what is that one takeaway you'd like to leave our community with today?
I want folks to remember that they have the power to choose the life they want to live.
Mm,
As challenging as it may feel in many moments, you get to choose joy. You
mm,
get to show up in a way that honors who you are, and that sometimes means there are changes in your community, in the world around you. Some relationships may then become a reason or a season versus a lifetime, for example.
mm,
But
beautiful.
if you want to be free as possible in this world, embrace yourself, honor who you truly are, and choose joy for yourself every single day.
Mm, mic drop, my friend. Mic drop. Mic drop.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. If you will see
Likewise.
in the show notes how to reach Tosh, you need to have her in your life. Please follow her. Not only full of wisdom, but full of joy and goodness. And I appreciate you to the moon and back. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lauren. I appreciate you too, my friend.
Thank you so much.